Hello, I'm Tom Clausen. I live in Ithaca, New York, and I'm here at my job at Albert R. Mann Library, where I've worked for 38 years. I became interested in haiku in the late 80s and have been reading and writing, trying to write haiku and other little short poems since that time. My beginnings with haiku were literally from a newspaper article that appeared in the Ithaca Times, which is a free weekly newspaper here in Ithaca. And there was a profile of a naturalist in the local area named Ruth Yarrow. And the profile of her was showing how she related to nature using haiku. And I just loved the examples of her haiku, and it was like an instantaneous sort of fascination that developed from reading that article. My own attempts at poetry had been overly wordy, repetitive, and had been little by little moving in the direction of more concise and briefer forms of poetry. And, so it was a natural evolution to reach the point where a haiku or a shorter poetic form made sense for me as a discipline and a way to avoid my natural tendency at being overly wordy. After reading the article about Ruth Yarrow and knowing that she was a naturalist at the Cayuga Nature Center, which is out near Taganic Falls State Park, and I realized that she was actually a patron that came into Mann Library. And I met her at the desk several times shortly after reading the article, and was able to share with her how much I enjoyed that article. And then we met a few times, and it was very apparent that she was strongly committed to a whole range of political activism and values that appealed to me. And although I have not followed necessarily in the kind of footsteps that she has set in haiku, I certainly felt that the form being abbreviated and in just trying to say something with as few words possible that would convey something to the reader was very attractive to me. Other very important early influences were Cor Vanden Heuvel's The Haiku Anthology. Shortly after reading the article about Ruth, I went to a downtown Ithaca bookstore and purchased a copy of the Haiku Anthology, and that certainly inspired even a more involved, inspired set of poems to be looking at, and to see the range of styles and voices and names of people that were prominent in the haiku community at that time, many of whom I was very excited to meet in person when I attended my first Haiku Society of America meeting at Columbia University in the early 90s. I first started sending out my little poems to Modern Haiku, Wind Chimes, Frog Pond, Brussels Sprouts, and Mayfly. And I remember getting my first acceptance and a crisp $1 bill from Bob Spies, and it made quite an impression on me. I certainly wasn't entering into the haiku world for any kind of money, but to get a crisp $1 bill had some kind of a symbolic value that transcended the monetary value of that dollar bill. His letters were always very encouraging, and despite the fact that I got an overwhelming number of not quites and polite rejections, it was a relationship that I very much valued over the years, and we exchanged warm letters of friendship beyond just the editorial relationship. I sent poems to Frog Pond, and the editor at the time was Elizabeth Searle Lamb. Her graciousness in response was something I very much appreciated, and believe was instrumental in helping me feel enough confident that I should continue despite the fact that very rarely did I have anything accepted. Francine Porad was the editor of Brussels Sprouts in the earliest years that I was submitting, and she was very generous in her comments and feedback about the poems that I submitted. And I actually had the chance to meet her at Liz Fenn's house up in Tug Hill Plateau in the Adirondacks at that time, and found her to be a wonderfully warm person, just like she was in her letters to me.
Did you know Bill?
In the earliest years of my reading haiku, it was a wonderful gift to, in the mail, receive any haiku journal, and then to order certain of the books that were being published in that era. One that made a deep impression on me and to this day remains perhaps my favorite haiku collection is Reed Shadows by John Wills, published by Burnt Lake Press in Canada. That book is very well worn and one that I always return to over and over again for the peace and quality of the haiku that are in that collection. In terms of my involvement with the haiku community, I've enjoyed subscribing to many haiku periodicals and being part of what to me feels like in a very extended family community of other poets all over the United States and all over the world that are similarly interested in writing haiku and little poems and sharing them. I've attended a few Haiku Society of America events, one Haiku North America event in Boston, and I've been most notably involved with a group in the Albany, New York area, which I was invited to join in 2003. The group was founded by John Stevenson, Yu Chang, and Hilary Tan, and they meet on a monthly basis at a restaurant on Route 9. The group name is the Route 9 Haiku Group. They publish twice a year an anthology of the group's poems that are selected through a very careful process conducted at each meeting, which usually runs 5 to 6 hours on a Saturday afternoon. I'm not able to attend on a monthly basis just on the fact that it's in Albany, 3 hours away from here, but it's a very meaningful part of my relationship to haiku these days. Another significant part of my involvement is being able to feature one poet per month at what is called the Man Library Daily Haiku site. It's a feature that began many years ago as being a posting in an elevator that went through the stacks of Man Library here where I work. And in that era, I would handwrite the poems and post them on a piece of paper in this elevator. When the elevator was renovated to be more like a 5-star hotel type elevator, I was no longer able to post the pieces of paper, and I assumed that was the end of the Man Library haiku feature. But the director of the library at that time, Janet McHugh, surprised me by saying that they were going to convert the daily haiku to an online presence. And so since the year 2000, I've featured one poet per month and had a haiku of theirs posted every day at the Man Library homepage. I think the reason I have stayed with writing or trying to write haiku and other little poems is the ritual and the routine and the form of a relationship that it has with every day, all the different little moments that go into a day that are often overlooked or taken for granted. A relationship with each of these moments is really the essence of what haiku and little poems are about. And I just enjoy going around documenting what I see, what I feel, and these observances being translated into the form of a little poem gives me a sense of purpose and makes me feel that on my path and each day there's a chance that I'm going to have something come out of that day that'll be worth sharing with others.